Well, good morning, everybody. Um, I tried to get out of doing this Dharma talk, but Todd just wouldn't let me off the hook. And even with the excuse that I'm recovering from knee replacement surgery about 3 weeks ago, he insisted that I do it. So um, anyway, here I am. I'm doing pretty well. The first few days were pretty rough, but I'm really doing quite well considering it's only been 3 weeks. But over the past few months, I've become a little obsessed with the Panda Cam, and I don't know if anyone else has been watching this, but a new panda cub was born on August 21st at the Smithsonian Zoo in Washington, D.C. And you can watch the mother panda, Meijing, and her little baby cubby 24 hours a day. And so I found that this has been a great distraction when I've been sick of watching the news or just need something to lighten my heart. And you can just turn on and see what the pandas are doing. As you can see the picture in the upper left corner, I didn't realize this, but pandas, when they're born, they're really, really tiny. And they're totally helpless and totally hairless, and they can't see or hear for probably a couple months. And the mother panda devotes her entire life to just comforting and embracing her baby, feeding, nurturing the baby, and surrounding him with warmth and care, and just taking this baby panda into refuge in her arms. And the mother panda doesn't even eat for the first few weeks. All she does is just totally embraces her baby and keeps him warm. And watching this panda reminds me of the embrace of Amida Buddha. But I've also, during this time, I've been reading a book, and it's a new book that's out. It's called Immeasurable Life, The Essence of Shin Buddhism by Reverend John Paraskopoulos. I hope I'm saying that right. The author was born in Australia, studied philosophy at the University of Melbourne. He was ordained as a Shin Buddhist minister in Kyoto in 1994, and he's written several other books on Shin Buddhism. And he was also the keynote speaker at the Summer Pacific Seminar in 2017 at the Institute of Buddhist Study in Berkeley. But I've always had a really difficult time trying to explain what Shin Buddhism is to other people. And I've had a hard time understanding the true concepts Shinran was trying to convey. And I liked this book because I thought it was a really good contemporary summary. It's written in a question answer format that addresses many of the difficulties in life that we all struggle with. And he presents the answers without using all the traditional terms and the words that I struggle so hard to interpret, or the metaphors that we're supposed to try to figure out what they mean. And at the end of each chapter, he relates a passage from Shinran's writings that relates to the question, so you can hear what it sounds like in Shinran's voice. And so I'd like to share a few passages with you today of some of the writing that resonated with me. So this is from the preamble of the book. So what is Shin Buddhism? This is a school of Buddhist tradition whose teachings is focused on an ever-present reality that pervades our life with an invigorating wisdom and a lively compassion. It is warm, benevolent, and continually working to return us to our timeless home. Far from being something impersonal or distant, it dynamically reaches out to lift the burden of suffering associated with the often brutal and terrifying conditions of our existence. In doing so, it does not change the way things are, but profoundly alters our experience of them so that we're no longer overwhelmed by the severe trials of life. This can only happen when we become firmly entrenched in its abiding presence rather than in the perishable conditions of this world and the unstable flux that is our broken, ego-driven personality. Therefore, our paramount purpose is to become awakened to this boundless reality as a compelling fact in our daily lives. While we cannot apprehend it through our senses or by thinking alone, a living encounter with this phenomenon leads to a subtle but far-reaching shift in our hearts and minds that impels us to take wholehearted refuge in its truth. It then becomes something that is always available to us as we undergo a powerful transformation that forever changes our outlook on life and death. This is not a question of mere religious belief, but rather a settled conviction that can be confirmed here and now, even in the midst of great adversity. When we come under the sway of this loving force, an attitude of deep and trusting spontaneously arises within us. This imparts a spiritual joy to our lives that remains unaffected by the mixed fortunes of worldly happiness. And when the time comes for us to depart, we shall be led to a realm of endless light in which permanent freedom from all suffering is assured. And in Shinran's words, my eyes become hindered by blind passions. I cannot perceive the light that grasps me, yet great compassion, without tiring, illumes me always. So throughout the book, he has several chapters. There's a section on life, reality, and practice. And he gives clear explanations of what some of the terms we've often heard through various Dharma talks and words through the sutras. But to me, his explanation helps clarify some of the mystery that I find difficult to express myself. And each of the chapters is a different question. So questions like, can the world give me the fulfillment I seek? And what he says is, when we seriously consider the matter, we ought to see that it's not the world itself that is blameworthy here, but rather our response to it as hurting and confused beings. It's not as though life somehow promised us countless delights for our good pleasure on which it cruelly failed to deliver. It is we who tenaciously hang on to a false expectation of what our real needs are and how they can be met, or indeed, how the world is meant to be. This suggests that the problem actually lies at the core of our everyday self. As I think about those words and contemplate all that it means, I think it's a lot to consider as we think through all that's gone on over this past week, over the election. In the chapter on spiritual practice, he talks about what help there is to get us through this. And he talks about Amida Buddha. So he says, Shin Buddhists often experience Amida as a soft yet liberating light that meets us in whatever condition we happen to find ourselves. The crucial transformative encounter between us, just as we are, in all our ruptured humanity. Amida is known as Nembutsu. The Nembutsu, the form that this response takes, is our invoking of Amida's name with gratitude and full appreciation of its significance. This is the embodiment both of our taking refuge and simultaneous expression of the active presence of this immeasurable life life working within us. This is made possible by a process of deep hearing, whereby we come to realize we are objects of a fathomless will that seeks to set us loose from the vice-like grip of samsara. And he explains Shinjin as this: when this all-embracing spiritual momentum breaks through into our lives, we respond to its call. We undergo a pronounced change at the core of our being, Shinjin. This helps to elevate our human condition to something more than just never-ending unhappiness and resentment. It is the awakening of our true heart and mind, the awakening and transformation that takes place within us. And at the end of the book, he does a summary of what Shin Buddhism and all of Shinran's teachings. And in it, he states that Shin Buddhism is available to everyone without exception. It imposes no requirements on us other than a deep commitment to seek the truth and be freed from our suffering, along with a willingness to take the medicine dispensed by Amida Buddha. This is done by casting ourselves onto the workings of the primal vow through steady reflection arising from deep hearing. In receiving and accepting an invitation to entrust, we patiently await the breakthrough of the light, just as we might early expect the arrival of dawn. We cannot compel its appearance or force ourselves onto it. Amida's presence imbues our life regardless of what's happening around us, because all existence is immersed in its unlimited resplendence. I realize I'm not doing a great job at explaining any of this, and maybe if you're interested, you can get his book, and maybe you'll get something more personal out of it. But as I try to put this into context into my own life, I realize more than just words, that it's this feeling that gently nudges and awakens our hearts and minds when we encounter this phenomenon of Amida's embrace. It's so hard to explain, but maybe it's just the realization that instead of feeling sorry for myself for all my aches and pains, realizing how fortunate I've been during my convalescence to have so many friends and family supporting me, bringing meals, sending cards, and best wishes. For the doctors and nurses and therapists who've worked so hard to take care of me. And of course, Ben, who's been a great support. And my sister Toil for sending over so many meals. But realizing that my inconveniences are so minor compared to the pain and suffering that some in our own Sangha are suffering through right now. And today, as I think of my mom, it's a comfort of knowing that my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and this entire Sangha, who through their actions, their entire lives, who may not have expressed the words of this doctrine, but lived by it and shown me how to entrust. And with all that's going on in the world, we're living through such a very trying time, and we're all so emotionally exhausted. So how do we heal? How do we come together? How do we learn to be nicer to each other? And how do we handle all the emotion? Let's keep working together to awaken our true heart and mind and to allow that transformation to take place within our hearts. It is with this comfort, it gives me great assurance that somehow all will be okay. And if you need inspiration, turn on the Panda Cam and you can be reminded of Amita's embrace. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.